It was just supposed to be tea. A Tuesday night, nothing fancy. Just me and Lauren, sitting across from each other in this quiet, dimly lit cafe tucked between two apartment buildings on the north side of Chicago. One of those places you find on accident and then keep returning to because it feels like it belongs to nobody but you. Small tables, amber lighting, jazz murmuring low from a hidden speaker. It was peaceful. It was supposed to be peaceful. I wasn't expecting anything, really. Certainly not a confrontation. My plan was to decompress after a rough day at work. Maybe talk about our upcoming weekend plans. Try to feel normal again. We hadn't been quite right for a while, and I guess I thought, maybe if I stayed calm long enough, things would fall back into place on their own. Lauren sat across from me wearing that soft cream sweater I used to like. Her hair was pulled back, neat, casual. She stirred her tea slowly, not even looking at it. Her eyes were somewhere behind me, on something that didn't exist. She looked like someone replaying a memory she didn't want me to be part of. I tried to ignore it. I focused on the cinnamon twist I hadn't touched and the second refill of my coffee that had gone cold. It wasn't that we were fighting, we weren't. We just weren't anything. There was a weird emptiness in the air between us. No tension, no laughter. Just silence. The kind that settles when people run out of pretending. That's when her phone buzzed on the table between us. It was nothing at first, just a screen lighting up the way phones do. A normal notification. Except, it wasn't. The name on the screen, Evan Brooks. The preview of the voice message, "I love your morning voice. Missed it today." And beneath that, a booking confirmation, Waterfront Hotel. King room, 2 guests. Check in tomorrow. I didn't mean to look. Seriously. It wasn't one of those suspicious boyfriend moments where I'd been eyeing her phone all night. It just lit up. The screen faced me. I caught it in passing. My eyes just happened to move before my brain had time to stop them. That's the truth. What caught me first wasn't even the name. It was the wording, the familiarity of it. Morning voice. It was int asterisk mate. Too specific. The kind of thing that doesn't come from a casual work friend or an innocent contact. It was the kind of phrase I used to say to her. A little inside joke we used to share when things were good. And now it was coming from someone named Evan. And the hotel booking? That was just the punchline. Same hotel we stayed in during our 3rd anniversary. Same hotel she said she didn't like anymore when I suggested it last month. I froze. Not outwardly, I think I kept my face mostly still. But inside it was like a floor gave way. And in that exact moment she noticed. Lauren's eyes dropped to her phone, then flicked up at me. Her expression hardened like ice spreading across a window. She grabbed the phone and held it close to her chest like I was trying to steal it. "Wow," she said, in that slow, incredulous tone she used when she wanted to flip the script before I even had a chance to speak. "Seriously, James?" I blinked. "What?" She gave a short laugh that had no humor in it. "Were you actually just looking through my phone right now?" My jaw clenched. It lit up. I didn't touch it. I didn't have to. "Oh, come on." Her eyes narrowed. "That is so messed up. You're really gonna act like that's normal? Like just snooping over my shoulder is okay now?" I stared at her. Not angry. Not yet. Just stunned. "I didn't snoop," I said quietly. It popped up, right in front of me, and I saw the message. I saw the hotel confirmation. She scoffed, sitting back in her chair like I'd offended her by breathing. "Wow, you know what? This is exactly why I don't share things with you. Because you're always waiting for me to screw up. Always paranoid. Always assuming the worst." That's when something shifted inside me. Because up until that moment, I still wasn't sure what I saw. I wasn't sure what it meant. Could have been a misunderstanding. Some innocent glitch, a friend joking too far. But when she turned it on me, when she acted like I was the problem for noticing, I realized she wasn't defending herself. She was deflecting. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes now. She was busy pretending to scroll through old messages, repositioning her scarf, looking around the cafe like she was suddenly aware of how many people were nearby. But nobody was paying attention. Nobody ever is when the world starts quietly ending at a cafe table. I watched her, and I felt something cold settle in the pit of my stomach. The thing is, suspicion doesn't usually come in explosions. It comes in layers, quiet, slow realizations that build until they can't be ignored. And in that moment, all the strange things from the past few months started lining up in my head. The late-night runs where she came back with no sweat, no receipts, no sign of where she'd been. Her phone always flipped face down. Her laugh changing. Our photos disappearing from her socials. The work tablet she never let me see, always closing it the second I walked into the room. The missed calls she never returned. The sudden cologne on her scarf, she said, was from hugging a client. The Friday night meetings that went nowhere. They all started stacking, one after another. And it wasn't just doubt anymore. It was recognition. This wasn't new. This wasn't spontaneous. This had been going on. And I had been asleep at the wheel. But right now, she was still pretending this was my breach. You know, she said, her voice suddenly calm again, like she was trying to pivot. It's really toxic to constantly assume things like this. To not trust your partner. That's not healthy. I looked at her and smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile you give when you've figured out the punchline halfway through the joke. You're right, I said softly. It's not healthy. She froze a little at that. I finished my coffee, cold and bitter now. The same as the moment. I'm gonna head out, I said, grabbing my coat. Wait, you're leaving? She asked, surprised. I've got an early start tomorrow. I paused. And I think I've already seen everything I needed to tonight. She didn't reply. I didn't expect her to. I stood up, nodded once, and walked out of that cafe feeling strangely clear-headed. No fight, no accusations. Just the sharp clarity that comes when you finally stop denying the thing you've known deep down for a while. The wind hit hard outside. Chicago in the winter never spares you. But for once, it felt good to feel something cold and real. Because inside that cafe, everything had been warm and fake. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed beside her, the weight of the sheets pinning me down, her back turned, breathing steady like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just accused me of violating her trust when all I did was exist in the wrong line of sight. She never brought it up. No apology. No follow-up. She just crawled into bed later that night like the conversation at the cafe had been a weird dream. Like we could just delete it from our shared history. But I couldn't delete what I saw. And I couldn't unfeel what settled in my chest. The slow, steady certainty that this wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time slip. Once the seed of suspicion is planted, your brain becomes your worst enemy. Everything gets re-examined. Every harmless moment in hindsight turns radioactive. I laid there in the dark, eyes open, watching the ceiling fan spin slow circles above me. And the more I thought about it, the more it all started to fall into place. Not like a puzzle I had to solve, no. Like a movie I'd seen before. And now I was just realizing how many clues I had ignored. Started small. A few months back. Lauren had N taking these late-night runs. At first, I thought nothing of it. She'd always been into fitness, and her schedule was unpredictable. She'd come home from work tense and say something like, I just need to clear my head. And I'd nod. It made sense. People run to think. But I remember one night vividly. She came back from her so-called run, cheeks flushed but not sweaty, hair too perfect, her shoes spotless. She smelled faintly of cologne. Not perfume, not sweat. It hit me the moment she leaned in to kiss my cheek. What's that? I asked, trying to sound casual. Huh? She blinked. The scent. That's not your usual perfume. She glanced at her scarf, then let out a soft laugh. Oh, right. That must be from a client. I hugged him goodbye after a meeting today. His cologne was strong. I nodded, but something felt off. The explanation came too fast, like it had already been rehearsed, like she knew I'd ask. I let it go. I let a lot of things go. Another night, she came home and said her run was amazing. But when I asked how far she went, she hesitated, then shrugged. Not sure. I forgot to track it. Lauren never forgets to track anything. She's the type to log steps walking through a grocery store. She's the one who got me into fitness tracking. But suddenly, she couldn't remember if she ran 2 miles or 5. I let that go too. Then there were the photos. At some point, quietly without announcement, she started removing pictures of us from her social media. Our anniversary photo, gone. The weekend cabin trip in Michigan, gone. I only noticed when my cousin asked why we didn't post anything from New Year's. I checked. Nothing. Not even a story. Just her smiling alone at a party I wasn't invited to, captioned "Night to Remember Dizzy." I asked her once, casually, "Hey, did you take down our anniversary post?" She didn't even look up from her laptop. "Oh yeah, my profile was getting cluttered. I'm cleaning it up." That was it. No big deal, right? But then came the tablet. She'd never had one before. Out of nowhere, a sleek black tablet showed up on our kitchen counter one morning. "Work issued it," she said when I asked. "Since when does marketing hand out tablets?" "They're testing remote collaboration tools." I didn't push, but it never left her side. Always in her bag. Always face down when not in use. And every single time I walked into a room, she would snap it shut like she'd been watching something she didn't want me to see. At first, I chalked it up to work stress. Then maybe guilt over something small. Maybe she'd been venting about me to friends or coworkers and didn't want me to read it. I told myself it didn't matter. Everyone has a right to privacy, right? Except privacy doesn't usually come with secrecy. And secrets? They have a smell to them. A weight. A rhythm. And Lauren had developed a rhythm. Calls she wouldn't answer in front of me. Texts she'd reply to with her screen tilted just slightly away. New passwords I was no longer included in. Shared subscriptions slowly changing, first the Spotify, then the Netflix, then the shared calendar we used to plan everything from bills to birthdays. One day, I noticed she wasn't adding anything anymore. I asked her about it, and she just shrugged. "I use a different planner now. That thing was getting too chaotic." And the replies. The timing of them. Every time I missed her call and called back, no answer. Then a delayed reply with an excuse. "Sorry, in a meeting," or "Sorry, phone died." But when she texted me, she expected a reply in minutes. I tested it one day, let a message sit unread for 2 hours. When I finally answered, she sent back, "Wow, didn't think you'd ghost me like that." I could go on. There were 100 little things. Each one on its own explainable. But together, they formed a pattern. One I couldn't deny anymore. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't start with the big reveal. It starts with small inconsistencies. It starts with someone you love choosing silence when they used to choose you. I remember one night, maybe a week before the café, I walked past her office while she was in a Zoom meeting. The door wasn't fully shut. I heard her laughing. Really laughing. The kind of laugh she hadn't shared with me in weeks. Maybe months. It stopped the second I stepped closer. She muted, glanced at the door, and said quickly, "Hang on. Someone's here." Then shut it all the way. I told myself it was just timing. Coincidence. But looking back now, it wasn't. It was all part of the same thing. A parallel thread running alongside our life, invisible until you look at it from the right angle. That night after the café, I couldn't pretend anymore. I got up before sunrise and went for a walk, retracing one of her so-called jogging routes. I didn't expect to find anything, but I needed to move, to do something with the storm in my chest. I ended up standing outside the waterfront hotel, the one from the booking. It was still dark. The lights inside were low, lobby mostly empty. I didn't go in. I just stood across the street, hands in my pockets, breathing cold air and trying to wrap my head around the fact that she had made a reservation here with another man. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't making it up. I had seen it. She made that booking. She planned it. She had enough trust in that relationship, and enough distance from ours, to not even care that her screen lit up in front of me. When I got home, she was still asleep. I looked at her from the hallway, peaceful, face slack, like a person who had mastered the art of living 2 lives without ever letting one spill into the other. She made it look effortless. Like peace wasn't a sign of trust or contentment. It was just practice. She wasn't calm because she was innocent. She was calm because she'd been here before. Because lies, for her, were just muscle memory. And for the first time since everything started, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt awake. Because now I knew I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I had been watching smoke rise for months. But now, finally, I saw the fire. Truth doesn't always come in shouting matches or screaming breakdowns. Sometimes it arrives silently, unannounced, unceremonious, and final. Mine came in the form of a plain white envelope. No name, no return address. Just James scrawled across the front in handwriting I didn't recognize. It was waiting for me in the mailbox one Thursday afternoon, tucked between a grocery store flyer and a water bill. No fanfare, no weight to it, just paper. Ordinary, forgettable, except it wasn't. I stared at it in the driveway for a solid minute before taking it inside. Part of me thought maybe it was a prank, maybe junk mail sent by a scammer or some generic office notice. I almost tossed it, but the second I opened it and saw what was inside, my hands went cold. The first page was a **T text messages. No names shown, but the formatting matched Lauren's phone exactly. I would have known it anywhere. Her speech patterns, the way she overused ellipses, how she always sent follow-up texts in fragments instead of full paragraphs. It was her, the other person in the messages, Evan Brooks. And there it was in black and white. Conversations that weren't just flirtation or banter. They were *mate. Coordinated. They were planning around me. Booked us something with a spa this time. You'll love the tub. Lauren replied, can't wait, face blowing a kiss, same cover story? Yep. Another marketing summit. I'll book your flight under your middle name again. Printed below were dates, room bookings, boarding passes, photos, low quality, grainy, but clear enough. Elevator selfies. A blurry *T of Lauren and Evan standing outside a hotel room door. Another with her hand on his arm at what looked like an airport lounge. I sat at the dining room table just staring. Every page in that envelope built on the last. Time-stamped, labeled, cross-referenced. Travel itineraries lined up with her claimed work retreats. One trip I remembered in particular was a weekend she said she was flying to Denver for a Women in Leadership conference. She'd come back with a branded notebook and a lanyard like a souvenir. I'd even asked her how the keynote speaker was. Oh, she was incredible, she'd said, eyes bright. But there, in the envelope, was the truth. She never even went to the conference center. The boarding pass said she flew to Seattle. First class. Same row as Evan Brooks. Check-in photos showed them arriving at a boutique waterfront hotel, the kind you see in honeymoon brochures. They were even in the same elevator. That notebook? Probably stolen from some event table. A prop. Another photo nearly knocked the wind out of me. A hotel room mirror selfie. Lauren in one of the dresses I'd complimented weeks earlier. I'd asked if she bought it for our date night. She said no, just something for work events. And now here she was, in that same dress, wrapped around Evan, both grinning at the camera like the world couldn't touch them. One photo had geotags. I searched the location. Los Angeles. She told me she was in Miami that weekend for a pitch meeting with a tech startup. Lies. Layered, planned, practiced lies. My first instinct wasn't even rage. It was stillness. That scary kind of calm that doesn't feel like clarity but like your brain locking the exits. My breathing slowed. My ears rang. My fingers trembled, but not with adrenaline, with something deeper. A kind of mourning. Grief for the version of my life I had believed in. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't guesswork or looking for meaning in half-truths. This was a parallel reality I hadn't been allowed to see until someone put it in my mailbox and made me look. I don't know who sent it. Maybe someone from Evan's life. Maybe a whistleblower from Lauren's work. Maybe guilt had a name, and that person decided I deserved to know. It didn't matter. What mattered was what I had now. Proof. Concrete, time-stamped, undeniable proof that I wasn't crazy. I laid everything out across the dining table like a detective pinning evidence to a board. I put it in chronological order: dates, messages, trips. I even pulled up our bank statements and began matching her travel claims to our credit card charges. The overlap was sickeningly perfect. A $78 charge at a seafood place in Seattle on the same night she sent me a selfie from what she claimed was her Miami hotel room. The restaurant didn't even exist in Miami. Another charge for a rideshare in L.A. during her so-called Denver summit. An Uber receipt sent to her email, still in the inbox I occasionally accessed from our shared desktop. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks that well. She just assumed I'd never look. She was right until now. I remember pulling out a pen and marking up the printouts with a red Sharpie. Not for drama, just for clarity. I drew lines from her alibis to the real locations. From claimed meetings to romantic dinner spots. From phone call timestamps to overlapping silence. I started to realize that this wasn't a short-term mistake. This wasn't a recent lapse in judgment. This was a second life. One where I was background noise. Lauren's calm over the past few months hadn't been composure. It had been detachment. She had practiced this. Polished the lies. Perfected the timing. And that smooth demeanor, the way she kept everything on schedule, the way she never panicked, it wasn't strength. It was habit. She'd lived with two faces for so long that she forgot one of them had a name and a mortgage and had once promised her forever. She forgot that one of them was me. I didn't tell her what I knew. Not that night. Not the next morning. I didn't leave the envelope out. I didn't confront her. Didn't explode. Didn't demand anything. I watched. I listened. I let her carry on her routine like nothing had changed, because for her, nothing had. She hadn't been caught. Not yet. She came home from work that Friday with takeout from my favorite Chinese place. "Thought you could use a comfort meal," she said, kissing my cheek. I looked at her then, really looked. The way her smile tilted just slightly to the left. How her hands didn't tremble. How she had this remarkable ability to appear unburdened. That used to impress me. Now it scared me. We sat down. Ate sesame chicken and fried rice. She talked about a coworker who got promoted. I nodded. I asked a few questions. She answered easily. She even laughed when I made a joke about our neighbor's awful landscaping. Like nothing was wrong. Like the woman in the photos didn't exist. Or maybe she did and I was the fake part. That night, I stood in the doorway while she got ready for bed. Watched her brush her teeth, braid her hair, pull on the worn t-shirt she always wore to sleep. The shirt I gave her on our second anniversary. And I realized something that will stick with me forever. Betrayal doesn't always arrive like a wrecking ball. Sometimes it walks into your house, takes off its shoes, eats dinner with you, and sleeps beside you like nothing's wrong. Sometimes it looks exactly like the person you love. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything or demand answers, or storm out into the night like the movies always show you. Once I had the full picture, once the envelope spelled it all out, I realized I didn't need to do any of those things. What could she possibly say that would make it better? What explanation would undo months of planning, deception, and double lives? So I didn't give her the chance to twist it. I didn't touch her devices. I didn't go through her tablet or her phone or her work laptop. I didn't search her drawers or check her coat pockets. I already had what mattered. The envelope had stripped the lies down to the bone. Instead, I got organized. That weekend, while she went on a day trip with a coworker to look at potential event venues for some new client launch, I sat down at my computer and began the process of pulling myself out of the life I had built with her. Quietly, intentionally, clean. First, I opened a new checking account at a different bank. One she didn't know I used. I transferred enough to cover my personal expenses. Nothing that would trigger any obvious questions. I left the main account untouched for now. That was part of the plan. I couldn't appear rattled. She couldn't suspect I knew. Next, I made backups of the evidence. I scanned every page from the envelope and stored it on an encrypted USB drive. Then again in cloud storage under a new password-protected folder. I also emailed a copy to myself under a disguised subject line, just in case something happened to the rest. Then came the document trail. I gathered every important record, birth certificate, social security card, passport, tax returns, work contracts, legal documents, and placed them in a locked box I hid in the trunk of my car. Not the glove compartment, not the usual hiding spot, buried beneath the lining, taped down with duct tape so it wouldn't rattle, just in case. Next, passwords. I changed the login credentials to my personal email, phone plan, laptop, cloud accounts, subscriptions, and even the smart devices we'd installed in the house. Slowly, one by one. Not enough to raise suspicion, but enough to start putting up walls. I removed myself from our shared calendar completely, erased my work schedule from her view, blocked my contact from automatically syncing to her devices. She didn't notice, or if she did, she didn't mention it. Then came the social side. I reached out to a few close friends, people I trusted, and let them know vaguely that things were off. I didn't spill the full story. I just said I might need a place to stay in the near future, or a favor when the time came. I chose people outside our shared circle, people who didn't owe her anything and wouldn't accidentally tip her off. Then I made a second phone line, prepaid, separate SIM, just in case I needed to disappear quickly. All of it, every step was deliberate. Not because I was afraid of what she'd do, but because I didn't want her to twist the narrative. I didn't want this to become a debate over who said what, or who misunderstood whom, or who made who feel neglected. I didn't want this to become her story, so I gave her no opportunity to control it. Meanwhile, on the surface, I stayed the same. I was careful, measured. I didn't get cold, didn't change routines. I still made coffee in the mornings, still asked how her day was, still watched the same shows with her at night, still complimented her hair when she styled it, even though the sight of her made something hollow twist in my gut. It wasn't because I was weak. It was because I needed her calm. I needed her unaware. You can't dismantle a system while the operator's watching. So I let her keep believing she was in control, even while I quietly slipped out of the wires. She got more relaxed too, smiled more, was even affectionate some nights, like she'd convinced herself that her little getaways made her a better partner. That cheating wasn't betrayal if you returned to the same bed at the end of the week. She said things like, "We've been in such a good place lately," and I would nod, smile, play along. The sick part? I think she believed it. I think the secrecy, the thrill, the two versions of her life, it all made her feel balanced. Like one version gave her the permission to keep the other afloat. Like she could have both and feel no guilt, because in her mind, she was maintaining the home, the image, the routine. She had convinced herself that as long as she never got caught, no one really got hurt. And that's what made it worse. The ease with which she lived the lie. The way she curled up beside me at night like nothing had changed. The way she said, "I love you," before leaving the house. It was so effortless, so polished. But me, I was unraveling in silence. Every time she kissed me goodbye, I saw that hotel elevator photo in my mind. Every time she turned her phone face down on the table, I heard Evan's voice in my head from the message preview. "I love your morning voice." Every time she came home late smelling like someone else's skin, I held my breath and pretended it was laundry detergent, cologne, air freshener, anything but what it really was. I felt like a ghost in my own house. Not because I was powerless, but because I was preparing to haunt her. This was no longer about heartbreak. That ship had sailed. This was about extraction, self-preservation, precision. She had built a parallel world in secret, and I was carefully, methodically choosing not to be part of it anymore. And the strangest part? I didn't feel angry. Not really. I felt focused, like someone executing a mission, like everything was just part of a checklist now. That was my armor. Because if I let myself feel it all at once, the betrayal, the loss, the humiliation, I wouldn't have been able to keep up the act. And I needed the act to stay alive long enough to get out clean. So I moved through each day like a man packing invisible bags. I rerouted all important mail to a P.O. box. I started looking at apartments. Nothing serious. Just window shopping for the future. I removed myself from our family plan, from our shared cloud, from our streaming profiles, from our location sharing apps. Quiet exits. No alarms. And all the while, she thought I was warming back up to her. She thought the distance had been a rough patch. That maybe our quiet moments were just signs of long-term love settling in. One night, she sat beside me on the couch and rested her head on my shoulder. "Do you think we're doing okay?" she asked, soft and small. I looked at her. "I think we're better than we've been in a long time," I said. She smiled, kissed my cheek, went back to her phone. I looked at the screen reflection in her glasses. Evan's name again. A message she didn't open right away. I didn't flinch, because I didn't need to catch her anymore. I already had everything I needed. She never saw it coming. That was the point. While she sipped wine on the patio and posted curated photos of our cozy little life, I was carefully, methodically erasing myself from it. One login, one key, one connection at a time. I'd already set the foundation, the financial split, the document lockbox, the cloud backups of everything in that envelope. But now came the more intricate work, the final threads that tied me to Lauren's world. The shared subscriptions were the first to go. Easy, quiet, and unnoticed. I unsubscribed from our joint Spotify premium and made my own account, canceled my profile on her Netflix, deleted my Amazon access, changed the recovery email on my Apple ID. I pulled out slowly, inch by inch, until there was no overlap between our digital footprints. Then came the shared smart devices. I deregistered myself from the doorbell cam, wiped my voice profile from the kitchen speaker, reset the smart thermostat credentials. All of it, down to the minor settings, removed or locked behind new passwords. Then I tackled the accounts she didn't even realize we shared. The emergency contacts at her workplace. I had been one of them for years. Quietly, I requested they remove me. Explained that our information was outdated and that she'd be providing a new contact. They accepted it without question. Her gym membership? My name was still listed on the shared plan. I canceled my profile and created a new account across town, far from the places she and Evan might go. I didn't want to breathe the same recycled air they did. I even withdrew my emergency access from our family doctor's records. If something happened, someone else could get that call. I was done pretending I was still her person. I was unhooking myself from her world like a man disarming a bomb. One wire at a time. No sparks. No alarms. At night, I kept playing the role. I'd sit beside her on the couch, watching whatever show she was into that week. Some true crime doc about husbands with secrets. Ironic. I wonder if she ever noticed how quiet I became during those episodes. How I stopped asking questions. I already knew the ending. I was living it. She'd glance at me occasionally, her eyes soft, like maybe she thought we were healing. And I'd smile, hold her hand, lean into her. I knew it was fake. She didn't. That was the difference. The irony is, while she thought she was managing two lives, she had no idea I was building a third, one that didn't include her at all. I found a storage unit under a different name. Cash payment, no ID required. I started slowly moving personal items there. Things she wouldn't notice were missing right away. A couple of books from my office. Old journals. Backup drives. My favorite hoodie. Spare tools from the garage. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would leave a gap. Then I began preparing my exit home. I had found an apartment. Small, quiet, just outside the city. Not permanent, just enough for a reset. A place with clean walls and no ghosts. I paid the deposit under the radar. Signed the lease with a quiet relief I hadn't felt in months. I made 2 sets of keys. One for me. One hidden in a spot no one would ever check. The week after I signed the lease, I bought a burner phone. Not to text her. Not to gloat or make threats. Just as insurance. I programmed it with my new contacts. My lawyer, the landlord, the storage unit manager, and 3 close friends who knew the truth. I left my primary phone untouched. She couldn't know I had another life waiting quietly in my pocket. I even began documenting the house. I took photos of shared possessions. Labeled which items were mine, which were hers, which had receipts in my name. Not because I expected a fight, but because if it came to that, I'd already be 5 steps ahead. There wouldn't be a debate over who bought what. I had a time-stamped file for everything. And still, on the surface, nothing changed. We still made dinner together. Still folded laundry together. Still argued over where to order takeout on Fridays. She'd kiss my neck when I washed the dishes. I'd rub her shoulders while she worked late on campaigns. She thought we were fine, maybe even thriving. I think deep down she believed I was the type to forgive, the type to cling, the type to fear starting over. Maybe she thought I wouldn't leave until I exploded, and since I hadn't exploded, I must have been staying. But I wasn't. I was just making sure I'd never have to come back. The moment that confirmed it for me was stupidly small. She was brushing her hair in the mirror one night, humming under her breath. I was sitting at the edge of the bed, replying to work emails. She glanced at her phone, smiled at something, and tucked it back under her pillow. "You good?" I asked casually. Hum," she said, still brushing. "Just Hannah sending memes. Long day." I nodded. But Hannah had texted me earlier that same day asking if Lauren was doing okay. Said she hadn't heard from her in weeks, that they'd barely talked lately. So now Lauren was using her as a cover. Using her friend's name to hide someone else's message. I knew it was Evan. I didn't even need to check. It wasn't the lie that broke me. It was the comfort she had in telling it. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, just spoke the falsehood with the same tone she used to ask me to pass the salt. She had mastered the double life, and I had finally mastered the exit plan. The next morning, I cleared the last few tasks from my list. I changed the emergency contact on my employee file at work, removed her name from my life insurance policy, adjusted my mailing address on every account that mattered. I filed for a legal consultation on separation, quietly without notifying her, just to understand timelines. I gave a copy of my backup evidence to a lawyer, just in case. I started driving to my new apartment in the evenings, little by little moving small things in. Toothbrush, blanket, books, an old photo of my parents. Nothing that would leave an imprint on the life I was leaving behind. And finally, I stopped using we when I talked to people. When friends asked about plans, I didn't say, "We're thinking of going out of town next month." I said, "I might take some time off." I started untangling the language, making space between me and the version of life that included her. And you know what? Felt good. Felt like breathing again. Not the desperate, shallow breaths I'd gotten used to, but full ones. The kind that fill your chest and make you feel like maybe, just maybe, you're allowed to exist on your own. She didn't notice. Not really. She thought I was just in a phase, burnt out or distant from work. She'd sit beside me at dinner and talk about redecorating the guest room. Asked if we should finally take that trip to Vancouver. Mentioned that Evan might be invited to the next company retreat, since he's part of the new marketing team now. I nodded, smiled, asked questions. She had no idea I was already gone. On the surface, nothing changed. I still kissed her goodbye, still cooked dinner, still asked how her day was. That was my cover. While she relaxed, believing she'd pulled it off, I was quietly removing myself from her system. One login, one bank connection, one memory at a time. She smiled more, almost proud of how strong we'd become, unaware that what looked like forgiveness was really a countdown. She had her other life. I had my exit plan. The scariest part? She never suspected a thing, because I didn't flinch, didn't accuse. I let her believe she still held control. And when someone feels safe, they stop watching for the trapdoor beneath them. It ended where it started, in a quiet cafe. She smiled over her drink and, as if pitching a vacation, casually suggested we try an open relationship. Her eyes sparkled like it was some modern idea we could laugh through. But to me, it wasn't shock, it was confirmation. She wanted to rewrite the story, make betrayal a shared decision. I didn't argue. I just nodded, left the cafe, and never returned. By the time she realized I was gone, the fallout had already started. Her work trips traced back to company cards. Investigations followed. Her career collapsed with her affair. And I never looked back.